Alright guys, today we're going to flush out the power steering pump and we're going to replace the filter. This is a new job for me, but from what I understand it's pretty easy. We take off the cap. All this stuff is going to have to be thoroughly cleaned before we put it back on. This is a float that's actually going to tell us what the proper height of the fluid is, which means this is probably a little bit on the low side right now. Fluid doesn't look horrible. I'm guessing that the filter was probably changed along with the fluid, but I'm going to change it out regardless because it's starting to make a little bit of a whining noise on occasion, especially when it's cold. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this. We're going to take out the filter, which is down on the bottom. We're going to drain this with a turkey baster, and then we're going to come over here to the low pressure side of the pump, and we're going to actually drain out what's actually in the pump. This is just the reservoir, but we're going to drain out the pump. So how we're going to do that is we're going to start the engine. We're going to turn the steering wheel full left, full right, probably 20-30 times just to get all of the fluid out. At the same time, I'll be putting fresh fluid in here, so we should be able to see fresh fluid come out. That's how we'll know it's been completely flushed. Before we do that though, we want to make sure to remove the old filter so that we're not just contaminating the fresh fluid. Hang tight. Okay, first things first, we're going to need a 10mm deep socket to remove the retaining nut that's on this rod. This actual whole mechanism can come out. That rod can actually break free and come out. It's not a big deal if it does. Remember that this is spring loaded, so once we get that nut loose, we want to be careful not to allow it to pop out on us. See how that springs down in like that? So what we're going to do is we're going to just try to unthread the nut enough that I can get my hand in there while still holding the phone. Okay. This is where a second hand would be handy. Okay, so the nut is loose, the retainer comes off. This is one piece. Set it over here so we can keep it clean. Take the spring off. Again, making sure to keep it clean. If you look down inside here, that's our filter. Got a little pick to help me remove it. I'll pull it right up out. It doesn't look too terrible, but I'd say it should be replaced nonetheless. I don't know if this was replaced when I bought the car and had all the repair work done. It's actually surprisingly clean. Huh. All right, so now I have a turkey baster that I'm going to remove the fluid from here, and I'm going to put it into this bottle. Just be mindful that this is probably pretty caustic for your paint. I don't think it's going to be a problem for your body, but I would just try to avoid getting it off on the paint or on other surfaces if you can. Okay, so probably the hardest part is just trying to break free this actual clamp here and this hose to get them to separate. Been on there for a little while. I didn't mention this is a 1979 Mercedes Benz 450 SL. So once we get that to break free, try to keep it from dripping underneath the car. I'm going to pull this hose out of here, and my goal is to try to use the same bottle as a receiver so that I can take all the excess fluid out. Yeah, see, there I go, dripping a little bit. Try to keep a towel there if you can so you avoid that, but my plan is to try to get it all to go in here so when I go to purge the system out it has a place to go. I may have to extend the hose to make that happen. We'll see. Okay, you can see that I've cleaned everything around here so I don't contaminate anything and let it drop inside. I've routed my low pressure line into my cup. I now have a tube for the overflow on where the reservoir is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour fluid in the reservoir after I pump out all of the fluid that is in the system now. Once we get this to drain out here, we'll add to it until we see it flow clear. Then we'll seal everything back up, put the new filter in, and voila. Okay, I've got it kind of wrapped back together again here. Everything's still kind of cleaned out. Reconnected the hoses, cleaned up some of my mess. So this is the part that I bought. That's a standard filter for it. There's a couple different brands. Most of them seem to be made in Spain. But there it is, H85. It's a man filter. It's the same exact one that came out of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some fluid in first, then I'm going to drop the filter in, then we're going to reattach all of the tension, and then I'm going to start to fill it up, and we're going to let the flow happen. Okay, new filter's in. Next step is to start dropping the parts back. Put the spring on first. I'm going to have to do this with both hands, so I'm going to put the phone down, but basically this will go on next, the retaining nut will go in. You don't want to over tighten it and snap the plastic, but it needs to be snug. So hang tight. Okay, as you can see, it's all reattached. It's pretty snug now. I didn't want to go too far with it. Also, I wanted to kind of point out here as best I can that there's a line here. That ridge should give you an idea of what the fluid level should be right here. This is kind of where it's at. It's kind of hard to see, but essentially there's a step right here, and that's where the fluid level is supposed to be up to. Right now, that doesn't really make a lot of difference because we have to get the fluid back into the pump, so we're going to actually be putting a lot more fluid in. I believe that this calls for 6/10 of a quart, but I'm not absolutely positive. So hang on, I'm going to fire it up. We're going to put some more fluid in and see where we go. Okay, so now that we're purging the system of all the air, you can see it's starting to level out, and as it levels up and stays at the proper level, it's still aerating. That's why it looks like a milkshake. What's going to happen now is when we turn the engine off, it'll all settle. Okay, here you go. Now you can actually see it since it stopped and all of the aeration is out of it. But if you look closely, you can see that my fluid level's right about here again. Should be good. I think we're done. Gonna button it up. Thanks for watching.